Do you ever get that feeling when you think you're really good at kicks and then this happens? The biggest thing people tend to forget is that in order to have good quality kicks, you need to be able to have the correct foot position in order to execute really good kicks. Hello and welcome back to the Knowledge Karate Academy YouTube channel. Now, if you're watching this, it means you've probably already subscribed to our channel, so thank you very much for this. If you've just joined us, make sure you click the subscribe button and also click the bell and you'll be notified when we do post any new videos. As well as that, if you haven't seen them, be sure to check out all the previous videos we've posted earlier in the year. So this is going to be a very small breakdown of why foot position is really important when it comes to doing kicks, how to make sure you can execute the kicks properly with the correct foot position, and as well as that, later in the video, we'll be showing you how to actually kick a target with the correct foot position on a strike shield. That's all later in the video. So we're actually going to start with the most common problem, and this actually occurs in probably the most basic kick, front kick. So when it comes to front kick, there are two very common errors that occur during this kick. Now, this normally occurs at a beginner level, or even if you haven't exposed yourself to enough target practice to understand how your foot movement should be when kicking. So the third error is pointing of the toes. When you kick, there is pointing of the toes towards the target rather than trying to pull your toes back. This is actually going to be quite painful if you kick a target. The second one is the opposite way round. There is too much flexion of the ankle, so when you kick, the toes point upwards, and this can actually affect your kick and make a scooping action rather than a forward action when you kick. That toes up action means there's a lot of flexion in the ankle and you're going upwards rather than forward when you kick. The feeling you should have when performing front kick is that your foot points forward, but your toes bend backwards. So you're actually kicking with the ball of your foot rather than your toes or your heel. This is not a natural position, so you have to try and train your foot to move in this way when you kick. Of course, when I kick front kick, your toes have to be up. So if you don't train that action, it's very easy for your foot to come up. Rather than thinking when you go forward, it's pointing your toe back when you kick. It's very unnatural, but we can train this so that it becomes a lot easier to get that feeling of pointing your toe back and you kick with the ball of your foot every single time. There are actually a few simple exercises that you can do to get that foot-ankle coordination, which will really help with your front kick. The first one is taking everything away so that you don't have to worry about balance or coordination with your arm and your leg. You're simply sitting down, and all you're going to work on is thinking about that ankle flexion and getting your toes back. So you simply start with your leg and your foot position as if you were raising your knee for a front kick. And all you have to simply practice is extending your leg and then trying to get your toes back as much as you can so that the ball of your foot is facing forward as if you're doing the front kick. So every time you're thinking your foot goes forward as you extend your leg, but you really try and bend your toes back before you then return back to the normal preparation for front kick. You don't have your toes pointing downwards, because that's not how you would start a front kick. You're simply thinking toes up and then reach forward with your leg, bending your toes back, really expose the ball of your foot and then return back to normal. You can then start to speed it up and eventually you'll get that nice easy foot coordination to execute a front kick. You might every so often get a bit of a weird foot positions, you might point your toes or it might go a bit wrong, but all you've got to concentrate is think, point your foot forward and really get your toes back and really expose the ball of your foot. And then eventually you can start executing it as if you were doing a front kick and the ball of your foot is showing nice and easily. It's a bit like a dance. The last exercise is actually a very simple exercise, but it's fantastic for working on your balance, and you can also use it to practice your other kicks. The idea is that you're using your hands to support your leg while kicking so that you can focus on getting that foot position right. If you need to hold on to the wall, you can, but all you're doing is simply holding your leg with your hands to support yourself. You start with your front kick, how you mean to kick, with your toes up, and you slowly extend your leg so you get your toes back, kicking with the ball of your foot, and then recover. Make sure you practice on both legs. Really squeeze your hand under your leg, think extend, focus on putting your toes back when you kick, and then recover. You can then start to speed it up a little bit. It's almost like you hold your leg out, a bit like a thrust, but you don't want to actually thrust your kick. You make sure you thrust your leg out with the toes back, and then recover. So you get used to extending your leg while putting your toes back and kicking with the ball of your foot, and then you can gradually start to take away your hand and kick correctly. Then you can go into front stand as well. So you add a nice snap for the front kick every single time. So some of the most common errors that tend to happen with foot position when performing kicks is that there is no connection with the ankle or tension in the ankle. This is where you see a lot of people when they kick, they tend to have a floppy kick, but their kick is actually quite good. The foot position is essential, especially when you are kicking a target. If you send your kick out, whether it's a roundhouse kick or even a side kick, and you have no connection with your ankle, you can cause serious injury. It's making sure that when you kick, you have that ankle tension and that connection with all your muscles to ensure that your foot is nice and solid when you kick. Very much like when you punch. You close your hand nice and tight and you tense up your wrist when you punch to avoid any injury. The same when doing a roundhouse kick, you don't have your leg all floppy. You have to make sure that your leg is strong as well as your ankle to ensure that you kick correctly. The same with side thrust kick, your toes are up and you make sure this is nice and strong so that you can perform a kick. Same goes with back kick. You don't want to point your toes or have a floppy action. It's making sure that this is tense and braced so that you can execute the kick properly. The best thing you can do to work on your foot position is to actually practice kicking your target. So you can start off nice and slowly to make sure you've got your foot in the right position for all your kicks to ensure you don't injure yourself, and then you can gradually speed up your kicks on the pad. Okay. So that pretty much sums up why foot positions are really important when it comes to doing kicks. Again, thank you ever so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to click the subscribe button and you'll be able to see all the latest videos that we upload. See you next time.